Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Woodland Cupcake class using Satin Fondant. My name is Sarah, and I also have Lindsay on here from Michaels, and she's going to help filter any questions that come through. You guys can use the chat box and ask any questions that you want. Let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm from New York, so I can't wait to hear where you guys are from. And I just will show you guys really quick the cupcakes that we're working with. We can go to the overhead screen so that you guys can see them a little closer. And so we have a really cute fox, a bear, a raccoon, and either like a porcupine or a hedgehog. That's the vibe we're going for with this one. And each one has a really cute flower crown. And all of this is going to be made with Satin Fondant. And then I just have the cupcakes that have buttercream on. So we're just going to be making the toppers today. All right, so I'll go through the supplies that we're going to be using today. I, of course, have cupcakes that are already buttercreamed. I have some water and a paintbrush. So the water is going to help us adhere the fondant to itself. The sugar gets sticky when it's moist with water. You can also use edible glue. Some people use piping gel, but I like to use water because everyone has access to water. I also have some toothpicks here. If you have a pointy fondant tool, you can use that as well, but some people don't have the tools. So I always like to show a toothpick, and that's what's going to be used to create this little texture of the fur on the porcupine. Okay, so then I also have a rolling pin. I'm using just a regular small rolling pin, and I have a couple different cutters that we're going to be using. Today's project is mainly focused on simple shapes, so you might think that this looks very intricate, but I promise you, once you see all the steps, it's going to be very easy, and I'm excited to show you how simple it is to make these cupcakes. So I'm using about a 2-inch heart cutter and a 2-inch circle cutter. And then I also have another smaller heart cutter that's probably about like 1.25 inches. And then I have the different fondants we're going to be using. I have the dark brown, which is a chocolate flavor. This is so delicious. They're all delicious, but if you're a chocolate lover, you will definitely love the dark brown Satin Fondant. I could just eat it by the pack. And then for the others, they're all the vanilla flavor, and we have pink, orange, white, and black. I also have scissors because this makes it easy for me to open up these packs. And while we're on the conversation of the fondant, when you open up fondant and it's exposed to air, it already starts kind of its drying process because the air is hitting it, so it starts to dry it out. So it's important that once you open these packets, if you have extra inside of them, that you wrap them airtight in like saran wrap or a bag and make sure there's no air inside of it. I also like to put them inside of an airtight container as well. This is if you're not using the fondant out of the pail, because today we're using the small 4.4-ounce packs. I also have cornstarch, and this is to help the fondant from sticking to your surface. And I'm also working on a silicone mat, and this really also helps with the sticking to the surface as well. And then very exciting, we're going to be using the new Satin Ice edible markers today. I have the extra fine kit with me. And the edible markers really take your fondant work, your royal icing work to the next level, because on a hard and dry surface, you can create all different designs, just like you're writing on paper, but it's edible and it's amazing. You can like create any doodles that you want. So I'm really excited about these markers, and we'll talk more about them when we start to use them. And then I also have parchment paper, because when I'm working with fondant toppers that we want to have dry and set before placing on top of a cupcake, I like to have them dry on the parchment paper because they just dry faster that way. And so that's why I have that. And then I also have some dry paper towels and wet paper towels with me, just because I don't have access to a sink right now, but in between working with the different colors, you'll want to definitely make sure that your hands are clean and dry, and in case some colors rub off on your hands or any of that. So Again, if you guys have any questions along the way about fondant or any of the Satin Ice products, just ask them in the chat and Lindsay will let me know. And let's get started. I think we should start with the fox. So for the fox, it's kind of like a burnt orange color. So to get that color, we're actually going to combine some of the brown and the orange fondant to make that little bit of a deeper orange. So I'm going to put the other colors to the side for now. And I'm just going to have the orange and the dark brown. So we'll just open up each one. And right out of the package, if you're not familiar with fondant, it's soft, but it's not so soft that you're going to be able to start working with it right away. You have to start to knead it a little bit to activate the gums, and that's what makes it softer and pliable. So we're not going to use a ton of orange right now. We just need to make this small topper. So I'm just going to take a small portion off. And then remember that we have to wrap this up because now it's exposed to air. So I'm going to put this in a little bag. Try to get all the air out of that. Okay, and then we're just going to knead this. If you're using a lot of fondant at once, it's going to be harder to knead because you have more to handle. But when you have this small amount, you can kind of just work it in between your fingers and just get it soft. And if you have warmer hands, you might notice that your fondant gets softer faster. And like you'll notice within a few seconds of kneading that the fondant definitely gets more pliable and flexible. So I just wanted to do that a little bit before we mix the two colors together. Also, the beauty of all of the colors that Satin Ice offers in their fondant is the fact that you can do color mixing rather than having to add dye to the white fondant. You can create unique colors just by mixing the already colored fondant that's available to you. And that's what we're going to do today. And I'm not using a specific color mixing recipe here. I'm kind of just eyeballing to get that deeper orange here. So the brown, I'm just literally taking probably a corner off of it. So I'm just creating like a small ball out of that. And you'll see the size reference. I'll put the two balls of fondant next to one another. And again, we will want to bag this up. Put it to the side because we'll come back to the brown for the other characters. Since this is such a small piece of fondant, I don't really have to knead this much before adding it. And we're just going to combine the two for size reference. Here's each color. And again, if we don't get the same color, that's okay. As long as we're just getting like more of a deeper orange. So I'm just going to combine the two. And you're just going to do the same process of kneading. And you're just going to keep on doing this until these two colors are completely combined. And if your hands are warmer, like I said, this might happen faster. If you were working with more fondant at a time, because if you wanted to make a bunch of these at a time, you would definitely want to work with more fondant. This way you can cut out more circles at a time and get more done. So if you were needing a lot of fondant, I like to place the fondant on my surface, use the palm of my hand, press down, fold, press down, fold, press down, and just keep repeating that process. This way it's a little easier on your hands to knead a bigger piece of fondant. Okay, so I have mine completely combined now. And what we're going to do is I'm just gonna roll it into a ball and I'm gonna press it down a little bit on my surface just to help get any like air bubbles out that could have happened from me kneading. And I'm also going to just dust a little bit of cornstarch on my surface. Again, the cornstarch is used to help the fondant from sticking to your surface. And it's important not to use too much of this. You want to use it sparingly because anything that you add into this fondant, and it can alter the consistency. So you just want that a little bit, just enough so that the fondant isn't sticky. You can easily pick it up off of the surface. So I'm not going to roll out the fondant too thin because these are going to be toppers that are going to be dry and then we can place on top of our cupcakes. You can place it on really any dessert that you want. If you wanted to make a full-on cake and put these all over the cake, that would be really cute too, or on top of brownies. Whichever treat you're making, they would look really good on. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off first by cutting the background, which is the base, which is this deeper orange color. And I'm just going to take my circle cutter, press down. And what I like to do is I like to give it a twist because that helps get me nice clean edges. And so then I take the extra. We'll need this soon for the ears later. So actually we could do the ears now. So for the ears, these are small triangles. Some people have small triangle cutters on them. Some people don't. I think most people don't. So I like to show a way that you can actually get these by using a different cutter, which is a heart, because you can use the bottom point. So we're going to roll out more fondant. About the same thickness as you did for your circle. All right, I need more cornstarch. So you'll see that my fondant, as I was rolling it out, was just sticking to the surface because I just need to add a little bit more cornstarch. It depends on the warmth of your hands, depends on the warmth of your environment. The warmer it is, the stickier, or like the more humid it is, the stickier your fondant could be. Okay. So I have this rolled out and I'm going to use the smaller heart cutter. So I think this is about 1.25 inches. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut out 2 hearts because I need 2 ears. And then what I'm going to do is, I actually hope that I have I don't have a knife with me, so I'm going to use this other tool. So if you have a small knife, you would want to use a knife, but I'm just going to cut off the bottom point and that's going to create a triangle and that's going to be your ear. So like I said, if you have a small triangle cutter, you can definitely use that. But if not, this works out really nicely by creating a triangle from using a heart, just by cutting off the bottom point. And then to attach these, we're just going to use a small amount of water. And my tip for using water to adhere your fondant is to take your brush out of the water and to lightly dab the water onto a paper towel, just to get any of the excess off. If you have too much water, it could just make it a little messy and the colors and the fondant could just get a little too soft. So I just like to lightly dab the area where I need the fondant to stick. And then I place the fondant on top of that. So we are currently done with this color now. So I'm just going to bag this up and this can be used later. As long as your fondant is stored correctly and not exposed to air and it's in an airtight container, the fondant has a 12-month shelf life. So as long as it's stored properly, you will be good and you can reuse it. Okay, so the other thing that I'm going to do is another tip for fondant. Like I said before, fondant starts to dry as soon as it's exposed to air. So once you have a piece cut out and it's already been out for about 5 minutes, you want to really minimize the amount of times that you're picking this piece up and maneuvering it, because that's when cracks can form. Because of the fact that the outside is already starting to kind of get dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carefully pick mine up off the surface. I'm using a bench scraper to do this. You could even use a long knife. And then I'm just going to transfer this over to the parchment paper because this is where it's going to stay and dry for at least 24 hours to make sure that it gets hard. And so that I don't have to pick this up again, I'm putting it there so it's can dry properly. And then I'll continue to work on top of this when layering our other pieces. So the next color we're going to work with is white, and I'm just going to wipe my hands before working with the white because some of the orange rubbed off on my hands.
So Maybelle has a question. How many cupcakes are you doing? Are you making one of each?
Yes, today I'm making one of each. So based off of what I'm doing, you guys will just want to use, if you're making a larger batch of these, or if you want to make more of the animals, you just have to just use more fondant. So you can just work with your ratios of the colors and create more at a time. So next I'm taking out the white. We're going to do the same process. We're just going to take a small amount out and knead it so that it gets soft and pliable. So the white is for the white fur on the face. That's like the signature part of a fox's face. And for that, again, we're going to use a circle cutter. So another simple shape. Again, I'm going to take my open fondant and I'm going to put it away inside of the bag. So I am going to add a little bit more cornstarch to my surface, just enough so that it doesn't stick. And I'm going to begin rolling this out. Since we are layering this on top of the other fondant, you don't want it too thick. You want it around the same thickness as the circle that you did before, or a little thinner. And then we are going to take the same circle cutter that you used to cut out the darker orange color. And we're just going to cut out a circle. Again, give it a little twist. This makes sure you have clean edges. And what I mean by clean edges is that there could be pieces fraying off so it looks like a rougher cut. If the cookie cutter that you're using is dull or not as sharp, it could make it not as clean of a cut. So that's why I always like to twist it. It helps get rid of those extra frays. I can bring it up closer. You might be able to see that a little bit. And if that does happen, you could just take your finger and just press on them a little bit and it will get rid of those. So the way we're going to get this shape so that it fits for the base of your fox's head, we're using the same circle cutter so this will fit perfectly. And what we're going to do is we're going to hover the circle cutter over this white that you just cut, and we're going to shift it over to the left. And this is going to create that, like, it's almost like a football shape. So I'm hovering over and I'm moving to the left a little bit. And I'm going to make a cut, and I'll show you the shape it makes. Again, I'm giving it a little twist so that it cuts clean. This is the shape it's going to create. And then that's going to end up going right here on the fox's face. And you might have to shape, depending on the size, we might have to take off some of that extra white as well. So I might have to actually go in a little bit more to make it thinner. That's probably good. So then we're going to repeat this on the other side. And to help you do that, you can actually pick this piece up and put it on the opposite side and just use that as a guide so that they're the same size. So now you have two of the same pieces. And then we are going to place this on top of the deeper orange color, and that's going to create that signature fox face. And of course, to adhere those, we're going to use some water. So again, I like to take my water and then I like to blot out the extra just to make sure it's just enough to adhere the fondant. So I'm just brushing some of the water on to where I'm placing the white pieces. And I'm just gently patting it down because I don't want to create any like fingerprints or anything like that. And with my extra white, I'm gonna add it to the bag with the other white. And the next part are the nose and the eyes. So for these eyes, I wanted to show that you could use either, you could do edible marker or you could do just small pieces of the black fondant for all the eyes because I used the edible marker for the mouths on here. If you did want to do the edible marker, you would have to wait for this surface to dry a little bit harder so that the marker edge doesn't dig into the fondant because it's not hardened yet. And when fondant hardens, it doesn't get so hard that you can't eat it. It's more of like a sprinkled consistency. So it gets a little bit harder on the outside, but it still remains soft on the inside. So you don't want to put too much pressure on it. So next we're going to do the eyes and the nose, and that's using the black fondant.
Okay, we do have one other question about storing the fondant as you're making. So Veronica is asking if you're doing 5 foxes and you cut all the pieces and put them all together, or do you put them in a container so they don't dry up?
So for these, since we're not, that we're keeping them flat and we're not wrapping them, so we're not going to be bending the pieces that are already dried, you can actually cut them and leave them separate and then adhere them if you want. I find that fondant does adhere better while it's still soft. So I like to do it all at once, but once you have this, like you can even have the base done just like this if you wanted, and you can let it air dry for 24 hours and then you can put it in a Tupperware with like parchment paper layered down and just layer them down and they'll be fine. But all you need is, if you did have all separate pieces dried, you would definitely need, I think, a stronger adhesion such as edible glue or piping gel, or even like a small amount of royal icing that can help adhere the pieces as well. So I'm just taking the tiniest amount of the black fondant. And again, I'm gonna wrap this up in the bag because now it's open. And then for the eyes and the nose, we're just creating really small circles. So we're just taking 2 really small pieces, just creating a circle in your fingers. You want to try to create pretty equal balls for the eyes. And then we're going to create a bigger circle for the nose. So I made the 2 smaller ones for the eyes. I'm just putting them next to each other so I can see that they're around the same size. And then the nose, we just want a little bit bigger. So for that, again, I'm going to take my water, blot some off, and then wherever I want to put my eyes, I will layer on some water. And then where I want to put the nose, I'll layer in some water. And then we just plop them on, gently press down. And then that's good to go. And then once we have all of the animals created, we will create the flower crowns all at once. This way we're not going back and forth with those. So the next part for this will be the floral crown, but I'm gonna let this guy sit on the side and we'll start the bear next. Does anyone have any questions about the fox?
Not so far.
Okay. So we'll continue on to the bear. Again, if you end up having a question about the fox as we go through, just please let me know and I can explain it. It's okay. So for the bear, we're using the dark brown fondant, and we are going to mix a little bit of white into the brown to create a lighter brown for the inside of the ears and for the snout. So for the actual head of the bear, it's just going to be the straight up brown. I'm just going to take a portion of that out and we'll knead that up to get it soft. And then we'll start to roll it out.
We have a comment that this is so cute, and
Oh,
I agree. This is so cute.
thank you. I hope you guys find it easy too to make, because these would make, I mean, these are really cute for a lot of different parties, but I know that woodland is a really popular theme for parties. So I think this one would be good. And you guys can even like specialize, like you can do custom colors for the floral crowns. I did mine more like the orangey and pink for fall, but you can do whatever colors that match your color theme. Okay, so the brown fondant is now kneaded, and we're gonna roll this out just like we did with the other, and we're gonna cut out a circle. I'm gonna press it down a little bit to get any air bubbles out. Lightly dust my surface with some cornstarch. If you don't have cornstarch, I know some people like to use powdered sugar, so that's fine too. Just don't use flour. So it's either cornstarch or powdered sugar that you want to use. So I'm just going to roll this out, not too thick, not too thin. I'll show you, that's about the thickness that I rolled mine out to. And I'm just going to cut the circle, give it a twist for a clean cut. And I'm going to pick this up while it's still pliable, and I'm going to place it onto my parchment paper. And again, the reasoning for this, I want to show you guys an example. I'm going to take out the orange fondant just to way it's like a lighter color, so you can see what I'm talking about, what will happen. So I'm going to roll out a piece of this just to show you guys what can happen if you start to maneuver your fondant while it's drying. So I'm just going to cut out a circle here, and I'm going to leave this, and I'm going to let this sit here till the end of class. And I'm going to show you if I try to go pick that up later or like move it around, it will start to form cracks because part of it has started to dry. So my trick to do that is I like to just get a piece of parchment paper out. I even like to lay this on top of a cutting board so I can then pick this up and move it and let it just sit on the counter and let them air dry. Or even like a cake board would work too. And I'm just putting my extra fondant away.
And we have another comment that this always seems so intimidating, but you make it look easy. So this is kind of what you and I were talking about before class.
That's my goal, guys. I want you guys to see how easy it is, because I'll be honest, I used to never use fondant. And now that I know how to use it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because I think it's even easier than buttercream. You just roll it out and you cut it or you mold it. It's really creative, and there's no wrong way to really do your designs. Everyone has so many different tips and techniques, and that's what makes it so much fun. So I'm glad that you guys think it's easy, because that's my goal. Okay, so I was putting the brown fondant away, and I don't know why, because we still need it. So I have the brown fondant out again, and next we're going to make the ears. And for the ears, I'm going to show you guys another little tip. To get these really small circles, you would have to use a small circle cutter or like the end of a piping tip. And sometimes that's annoying because then the fondant can get stuck in the piping tip. So I'll show you my trick on creating smaller circles without using any cutter. So I am going to add a little bit more cornstarch to my surface just to make sure nothing sticks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to form a small ball of fondant. I'm going to actually form two of the same size, so that, because these are for the ears. So form two small balls of fondant around the same size. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pointer finger, and you might want to just coat your pointer finger with a little bit of cornstarch so that it doesn't stick. Your finger doesn't end up sticking to the fondant. And you're just going to lightly press down, and this is going to form a little circle. And you'll continue pressing down until you get to like the size that you want for your ear. And then before it starts to stick to the surface, I'll then pick that up and I'll move it to my parchment paper. You can actually even do this directly onto the parchment paper if you want. So again, I'll do this to the other one, and I'm just lightly pressing down with my pointer finger. It might stick a little bit, so you could just remove it with your other finger, and you just want to get it like the same size as your other, and then you have two circles. So these are the ears, and The next thing, we're gonna do the same exact idea, and I'm just going to add some white to the brown to make it a little lighter brown so that we get some contrast for the inside of the ears and for the bear's snout. So I'm just gonna take some white fondant. And we're gonna mix some brown into it to get a lighter brown. And again, I don't have exact measurements for this. You're just gonna eyeball it. You're just gonna add a little bit of brown at a time. Like, since the dark brown is such a dark color and it's very concentrated, you really only need a small amount. So I'm just gonna add that small amount to about this much white fondant. And we're gonna see what color we get. It should be a light brown. So I'm just gonna knead the two together until I see a light brown form. It's probably going to be more on the tan side, and that's okay. And if you want yours to be darker, you can add more of the brown fondant to get it darker. I'm going to keep this shade. I think it's pretty. It's like a nice tan. So now with this color, we are going to do the same technique where we create two small balls of fondant and then press them down with our pointer finger to make small circles. So the thing is, you want these to be even smaller than the circles that you created, because these are going in this inside of the middle of this. So smaller circles are on the same, you want these two circles to be the same size, but you want them smaller than the circles that we did for the outside of the ears. So I have two small circles there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the slightest amount of water in the middle of each of these little brown circles, because that's where we're going to be pressing down these tan circles. So I'm going to put that directly in the middle, and I'm going to press down with my pointer finger just until lightly. And I'm going to have to do this a few times to just flatten it out. And this is just the inside of the ear. Do it again. So this is, I'm just pressing the tan colored fondant in the center of the darker brown. And I'm just lightly pressing down until this fondant forms a flat circle. And now we have two ears. And I'm just lining them up where I want to put them on the bear. And then I'll come in with my water and I will lightly brush a small amount where I want to place the ears. And they'll be adhered. Okay. So the next part is the snout. So we're going to take that same tan colored fondant and we're going to create a slightly bigger ball of the fondant than we did for the outside of the ears. So this is the part we're making now. This is where the nose is going to go and the mouth. So we want to make it big enough so that the nose is going to fit and so that you can draw the mouth, but not too big that it's going to take up the whole face of the bear. So again, I rolled up a small ball of the fondant and I'm just going to take my pointer finger and start pressing it down. I'm going to coat my finger with some cornstarch so that my finger doesn't stick to it. And I'm just going to lightly press down until I get a nice flat circle. I'll pick this up so you guys can see the side reference. Oh no. Can you guys still see me on this front camera? Or no, actually, you guys can see overhead, right?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
overhead.
I think something happened.
Your front camera is gone.
Okay, but this, okay, as long as you guys can see overhead, because that's the most important one anyway. Okay, so this is where, this is called for the snout, and this is where we're going to be adding the nose and the mouth. So I'm just going to lay this pretty much in the center of the bear.
And
Like
we
this.
have a quick question. Can you use wax paper instead of parchment paper?
Yeah, you can use wax paper. That will work just as good. I'm just gonna wipe my hands because I have some of the extra fondant on me. And then the next part is we're going to add the eyes and the nose, just like we did for the fox. And that's just using the smallest amount of black fondant. And the important thing is that when you add the snout for the bear, you want to make sure you are leaving enough room for the eyes because we are going to be putting the floral crown on later. So you want to make sure that there's enough room for that. So we'll get our black fondant out again. All we need is a really small piece. And we will create 2 small balls for the eyes. And for this nose, it's about the same size as the eyes. It's a smaller nose. And then we will take our water and we will lightly, since this is a really small piece of fondant we're adhering, we're going to really put the smallest amount. Place it where you want to put the eyes. I am putting them a little low so that we have room for the floral crown. And I'm just going to dab a little bit in the middle of the snout because that's where the nose will go. So we'll put the nose on and then we'll add the eyes. And then the bear face, and then we'll add the mouth later once the fondant can set up a little bit. This way the edible marker doesn't dig into the fondant. And then we will add the floral crown later as well. So the next one is the raccoon. This one's so cute. The raccoon, we're going to be needing the black and white fondant, and we're going to do some more color mixing with these as well. So the idea is you want to create a light gray, and then we'll create a darker gray for the eye sockets. So I have my black fondant and my white fondant. And again, since the black is very concentrated, you're not going to need that much to create a gray shade. You're going to need more white than black. We'll take a portion of the white out. And then we will add a little bit of black and we'll see what color gray we get. For the actual raccoon, we want like a lighter gray. And you'll just start kneading this until your gray color forms. And once that forms, then we will cut out a circle, just like we did with all the others. Okay. So again, I'm going to roll this into a ball. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit, and I'm going to put the rest of my white fondant away for now until we need it again. So I'm going to lightly flatten it, get any air bubbles out. Roll it out about the same thickness as the others. And we are going to use our circle cutter. Press down, give it a little twist. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this up while it's still pliable and bring it over to my parchment paper. The next part is to create the ears. So we're going to do the same thing that we did for the fox. So we're going to use the smaller heart cutter. So again, for my cutter sizes, you guys can also use bigger cutters if you want to do this to cover cookies. And if you don't want it to be a cupcake topper, you would want it to be a bigger scale. So you would do this, you would use the circle cutter that's the size of your cookie. But today for these cutters, I'm using a 2-inch circle cutter, and this heart cutter is about 1 1/4 inches. So for the ears, we're going to roll out the same gray fondant, and we're going to cut out 2 hearts. And then to get those triangles, we are going to just cut off. And like I said, I don't have a knife. I'm using my bench scraper, but I'm just going to cut off the tip of the point of the heart, and that's going to give us a triangle. And those will be our raccoon ears. So our extra gray fondant, we can now put away. And let's line these up where we want to put them. And then again, we'll take a very small amount of water. You can take some, you can blot it off on your paper towel. Just use some water where you want to adhere your ears. Just a little bit. Press them on. And then this next part, we are going to use another heart cutter. So this heart cutter is about 2 inches. It's around the same width as the circle cutter we're using. And so basically we're going to cut out a heart. And then we're going to use the circle cutter to cut over that to create that bottom round edge so that it fits perfectly on the circle cutter. So we're just going to take out some white fondant. Only need a small amount. Knead it so it's nice and pliable. I'm gonna roll it out. I'm gonna move it to the parchment paper so that I don't have to pick it up off the other mat. And I'm gonna do a heart, press down, give it a twist. So the next part that we're gonna do is I'm gonna add a little bit of water to the head of the raccoon on the lower half, just a little bit, because this is where we are gonna be placing this heart shape. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try to line up exactly where I want this raccoon, this part that I want to be on the raccoon. So I'm just pressing it down on top of this, and see how we have this extra lip here of the point of the heart. We're gonna take the same circle cutter and we're just gonna give it a little cut there on the end. And this way it has a nice rounded edge, the same rounded edge as the base of the raccoon. And again, the reason why I wanted to make sure I lined it up correctly was because we still want to have room for the floral crown that we're going to be adding later. And then the next part is the darker eyeshadows. So for that, we're going to create a darker gray. So we'll use less white this time around. So we'll take some black fondant. We will add a portion of white to it. I'm using about like equal parts, and we'll see how much lighter it makes it. It's just enough so that there's a contrast between the eyeballs as well. So I need to add more white to mine.
So we have a question if you can add these to the top of cookies as well. So would you need the same layer of icing in between as the cupcake?
Some people, since the fondant is basically an icing, some people don't even put a layer of icing on top of the cookie to adhere it. Some people just brush some water on the back of the fondant and adhere it to the cookie. But you can definitely do a very thin layer of icing if you wanted to. And then if you are using these to decorate cookies, you would definitely want to just put the base color directly on the cookie, and you can do that in advance. You wouldn't want to do this all on the side and then add it to the cookie. You would want to first adhere the base color to your cookie and then add the details as you go. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
And we had another question. These cutters.
Yeah.
What brand are these cutters that you're using?
These cutters, I believe, are a Tico, but these are such standard shapes that Michaels will definitely have heart cutters and circle cutters available. Really, you can find circle cutters and heart cutters are so common. That's why I like to use the simple shapes so that it's easy for you guys to find.
Okay, and one more question.
Yeah.
What do you say when people say they don't like fondant?
When people say they don't like fondant, you kind of have to listen to them, especially if it's like one of your customers. But if you want to convert them, you can always give them an extra cookie on the side that's covered in satinized fondant because it really is game changer. The taste is absolutely amazing. I like to think of it as a basically a rollable frosting. It tastes just like a vanilla frosting to me. So that's how I would do it. I would give them a taste test and maybe that can convert them to liking fondant. Okay, so the next part is these eye sockets for the darker part of the eyes on the raccoon. And so I made a dark gray just by mixing some white and black together. And for these, we're going to use the same technique that we did for the ears on the bear, but this time we're making an oval. So what we want to do is first we're going to form 2 equal size balls of dark gray fondant. And we're going to form an oval or like kind of like an egg shape out of these. And then once you have that shape, you're just going to do the same thing. You're going to press down with your pointer finger to form a flat oval shape. And again, I'm just coating my pointer finger with some cornstarch so that they don't stick. And I'm just forming 2 equal sized ovals. And then I'm going to mark down with my water where I want to place these. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water there so that these adhere to the face of the raccoon. And you want them small enough so that the you still see some of the white in the background as well. Okay, so then next we need small pieces of the black fondant. And these are going to be the eyeballs. So we're just going to form 2 smaller balls of the black fondant. I'm just checking that the sizes are good. And then just a little bit bigger of a ball for the nose. Take your water. Again, this is for a really small amount of fondant, so you just want to lightly dot some water down where you're going to place the eyeballs and the nose. And you just lightly press them down. And then again, we can add the mouth for this guy later when the fondant has time to set a little bit. And now we're going to move on to the porcupine slash hedgehog. So for that, we're going to need the brown. I have some brown from last time. And then if you still have the same tan color that you used for the bear, you can use that for the face and the ears. But first, I'm just going to need some of the brown fondant, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to roll it out and cut out a circle just like the others.
We have another question.
Okay.
How does using food safe gloves affect the handling of the fondant?
It shouldn't affect the handling at all. Actually, it might make it easier for you because your fingerprints might not show up, and it might act as a good barrier for the warmth of your hands to make it so that the fondant is easier to handle. I would just make sure that they fit you very well, because if they're like a little big on you, that's when it could create kind of like indents in your fondant. So just make sure the gloves fit you good and that they're not too big. Okay, so for the porcupine, we're just going to cut out a circle. And then next we have to create a lighter brown color. So if you had that tan color from before for the bear, you can use that. If not, just create some more. So I am just gonna mix some brown with white fondant just to create like a light brown. And again, we're gonna use another similar technique. We are gonna use the smaller heart cutter that's around 1.25 inches for the face. And before we do that part, I'm gonna show you guys how to do the texture on the porcupine.
So can you use a regular roller, or does it have to be a fondant roller?
I like to use a fondant roller just because of the material, like it's not wood. It's kind of like a plastic, and I just think that these work really well. So I would recommend these. You can try, I think it should work if you have a regular plastic rolling pin too, that should work. I would get nervous with like a wood because I wouldn't want it to stick. Okay, so now before we start working with the tan color fondant or the lighter brown, I want to show you guys how you can make this texture. So I take the toothpick, or you can use like a sharp, you can even use like a knife, like a small knife, or even like a pointy fondant tool. But basically, I'm just going to lightly like kind of dig the toothpick into the fondant and kind of like drag it down. And this is just going to create these textured lines to look like spiky fur.
And Sarah, when you finish that, will you hold that up close to the camera so they can get a better view of the texture?
Actually, I'm going to do that now as I'm doing the texture. I'll try to. So I'm just lightly digging the toothpick into the fondant, just enough, not enough that it's going to poke all the way through, but just enough, and then dragging it, and it creates kind of like a fur texture. And then on mine, I had cut along the edges to create kind of like a spiky look. So you could do that as well. I mean, you could even just do that with your toothpick too. You could press it down and drag, or you could even use a small knife and just make cuts along the edge. So I'm just going to continue to just make this look like it's like a spiky edge. So I'm just going to continue kind of doing that same texture, but on the edge so that it looks rough. So I'm just lightly digging into the fondant with the toothpick and dragging. And it's creating like a frayed textured circle now. It's not completely smooth. And like I said, you can do that with a knife and create like triangle cuts like I did with this one, or you can use the toothpick. So for the mouth on this one, we're just going to take the light brown color, roll it out, and we're going to cut out a heart. Oh no, my fondant's getting sticky. So let me redo that. That's also the beauty of fondant. If something happens like a mistake, you can just roll it up and roll it out again and do it again. So I'm just going to cut out the heart. And then I am going to take the circle cutter and I'm just going to cut off the tip of the heart so it's not pointy. And I'm going to put this on the lower half. And then for the nose, I'm going to take the darker brown fondant and we're going to create kind of like a cone shape. So for that, I'm just going to create a ball of fondant. So ball, and then I'm just going to taper one end to create a cone like that. And then just flatten the base a little bit so that it can stand upright. And we're going to attach that so it has like a pointy nose. So this is what it should look like. And we will take the lighter brown for the ears and we'll use the same technique as we did. So we're going to roll them into 2 small balls and then flatten them with our pointer fingers. Again, you might have to coat your finger with some cornstarch just to help your finger from sticking to the fondant as you're trying to do this. Use some of your water. I am going to place them. The flower crown is going to be going in between the ears and the face. So I'm just going to put the ears a little higher so that there's room. And then we will add the eyes. And again, the eyes are the same as all of the others. So that's just using some of the black fondant and creating 2 smaller balls. So I'm just wiping my hands in between. And we are cutting it close on time today. So I am going to I'll show you guys how to make the floral crown and then you can know how to do them for all of the animals because it's the same exact thing. You can also just leave these just like this as well if you wanted to not add the floral crown. I just think it's a cute little extra detail. Okay, so for the eyes, we're just going to take 2 small balls of the black fondant that are the same size. And we're going to place them onto the tan fondant where the nose is. So the porcupine, all the animals are done. And now I'm going to show you how to make the small rosettes for the floral crown. So I'll bring this up closer so you can see how they're kind of like little like rolled rosettes. If you have really, really small, they even make flower cutters that are that tiny. Again, that's not something that everyone has. So I wanted to show you guys how to create really small little rosettes, which are so easy. Just wait to see how easy it is. So I'm going to show you guys with the pink fondant. Just going to wipe my surface a little bit.
And while you're doing that, we had a question. If they want to make a dozen of these, so 3 of each face, would there be enough of the fondant of those packets that you started with to make a dozen?
I think so, because I still have a ton of, I have all of these still. So I have enough. I would say so, but if you want it to be safe, you could get 2 of each and then you'll definitely have enough. Okay, so I'm just taking some of the pink fondant and you can make various colors out of the pink. Like you can mix the pink with the orange to create kind of like a coral color. You could make it a lighter pink by adding white to it. That's what I did with some of these on this cupcake. But I'm going to just show you with the straight up pink on how to make the rosettes. So all I'm doing is I'm just kneading up the pink fondant just like we did with all the others, just to get it soft. I will put some cornstarch on my surface, just a little bit. And we're going to roll this out. And you want to roll it out on the thinner side, not too thin that it's too hard to handle, but just enough. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to create skinny strands of fondant. And like I said, I don't have the knife, so I'm using my bunch scraper. Actually, this is a very good way to do it because it's just a long piece that you'll get a straight line every time. You could just cut strands with a knife or a pizza roller, a cutter. But I'm just going to make cuts. I just wanted a straight edge, so I took that edge off. And then you don't want them too thick. I'll show you about how thick I'm doing my strand. So it's about that thick. You might even be able to go a little thinner. So I'll just continue to cut these across. And since we are going to be rolling this fondant up to make the rosettes, it's important to move on the quicker side when you make these, just because you don't want the fondant to crack as you're making these. So then what I like to do is I like to take my water and I like to blot it out on a paper towel before I do this. We don't want too much water, just enough so that the fondant will stick to itself when we roll it. So I'm just going to lightly put a little bit of water down on this piece of fondant. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll it up like a swirl. And it's going to create a cute little rosette. The hardest part is getting that little swirl started. So you can create, like, I could get 2 out of this. So I'm just going to do that little roll. I'm going to make a cut. And I'll pick this up to show you what it looks like. So it's really just like a little swirl. And to make them flatter, if you want, you can cut the excess off the back edge. And then you have yourself a little rosette. And then you could just make a bunch of these. And then you would just lay a strip of water where you're going to place the line of flowers and then just adhere them to each animal. So again, you're just going to take some water on your brush, a really small amount, and you're just going to brush a little bit on there so that the fondant sticks to itself as you roll it. And you can make larger roses doing this by continuing to roll out through the whole way, or you can make a bunch of small ones. So I just rolled it a little bit. I'll make a cut there, and then I can even continue rolling for another one. And again, you can do this by using like fondant molds that have small flowers in there. And if you don't have those tools, you could just make small ones like we're doing here. And then to make it so that they're not long, so that they sit flatter on the animal, you just cut off the back end and it will be flat. Does anyone have any more questions?
There's one question, just a reminder. Did you say it was let them dry, air dry for 24 hours before placing them on the cupcakes?
I like to, I mean, you could try overnight, and then what another tip that you can do, actually no, because you want them. So with fondant, you want to at least give it 12 hours overnight. That's what I like to do before placing it on the cupcake, because since these are toppers, you want them to stay the same shape and not fold over the cupcake. Some people do it that way, but for these particular ones, we're putting them on top of buttercream, so you want them to keep their shape. So I would definitely suggest leaving them out in open air to dry for at least 12 hours, but you could do 24, and then they should be good to go. They'll easily be able to pick up off the parchment paper. I didn't adhere those flowers, so they just fell, but you easily be able to like pick them up. Like, see, this is already starting to hold its shape. I can move it and it's not bending. But I will take this piece that I showed you before. So this piece is starting to dry. But like I said, if I wanted to start to bend this, look at how it starts to crack on the surface because it's already started its drying process. It doesn't want to be manipulated anymore. So that's why it's important to not move your fondant a lot after it starts the drying process. And that's why I like to sometimes work directly on the surface that the fondant is going to be drying on, so that I don't have to lift it up and place it and pick it up, but not a lot. So That's how the cracks can form, is if you start to manipulate the fondant after it started to dry. Like I could still move this around. It's not all the way dry yet, but the outside layer was starting to dry, and that's how those cracks form. So that's it for today's class. So let me know if you guys have any other questions.
I think there was one more about the edible markers.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let's actually show how to do the face. That's a good idea. Forgot to add how to do the mouth. So for the edible markers, these are so awesome. They're literally act just like markers, but it's with edible ink. So when you use these, they have all different kinds. We have extra fine, fine, brush tip, and bold tip. Today I have extra fine because this comes in brown and black, and like I use them interchangeably on these mouths. Some I used black, some I used brown, like on the bear. So I'll show you guys with the bear mouth. So I'll take the brown edible marker, and it's important that when you guys use these that you use it on a surface that's already starting to get hard and it's not soft. So you don't want to use this on a buttercream. You don't want to use this on a wet royal icing. You want the royal icing to either be hardened, or you want the fondant to be already starting to be set so that the tip of this marker doesn't dig into the surface, because then that can cause it to get clogged up and not work anymore. So it's very important that you use it on surfaces that are dry and hardened. So since this bear isn't completely hardened yet, I'm just gonna lightly do this. So you want to just do like light pressure, and you just draw on the mouth, just like you would if you were drawing on paper. And the beauty is that these markers have such good pigment so that you really don't even have to press hard. It just, I'm hardly pressing. Can you guys see that? I could try to pick it up so that.
Yes, that is so cute.
And it's so easy. I'm obsessed with the markers. The markers are, ooh, I just flipped that. The markers are game changer for cake decorating and cupcake toppers, because you could just cut out a circle of fondant, a white fondant, and then you can make doodles all over it, just like on this cake, whatever design you want once it's hardened, which is awesome. Fun for kids to do too. Like if you cover cookies for Christmas time with white fondant and then wait for them to harden a bit and then color on them, that's a lot of fun as well. Are there any more questions?
There was one more. Do you need to, I'm sorry, do we need the faces to be dry before adding the flowers?
No, you don't. You can have all this dry together. So we're just cutting on time. So the flowers aren't added right now, but you add them all at the same time. You can add them once they're dry. Again, you might just need like a stronger adhesion, such as like an edible glue or a royal icing or something to get them on. So I do recommend putting them on while they're still not set up yet. And that's that. So I hope you guys thought that this class was on the easier side. I'll show you guys how you just want to literally, this isn't time yet to put these on here, but I'm going to show you once this is set, you literally just place this on your buttercreamed cupcake and it's ready to go. And what helps is that this is like kind of like the same size as my buttercream and it's flat, so it really won't curve. So I could kind of just place these on and they would be fine.
So you do not have to add the water on top of the icing before you place those?
Nope, because the icing is already kind of soft. Once you want to do this on top of fresh buttercream, you don't want the buttercream to be sitting for a while or else it will get like a crust on it and then it won't stick. So you want to do this right after you pipe your cupcake, you want to place it on top. And like you can even do, because the floral crown part does add more time and it's a little bit tedious because they're small. So if you don't want to do that, or you can use molds or cutters for that part, or you could do half that way. So you could have half, some with floral crowns, some with not, whichever you prefer. So if no one else has any more questions,
Nope,
Cities.
there's just a lot of comments. Thank you
Aw.
for the class. These were adorable, wonderful class. You're a great teacher. So
Oh,
thank you very much.
thank you guys so much for joining. My next class in October is really fun. We're using the Satin Ice Buttercream icing mix for the buttercream part of the cupcakes. And then we're using the Satin Ice Black Glitter Glaze, and we're going to create really fun Halloween spiderweb cupcakes. So, and we're going to create fondant spider toppers for those. So you guys definitely want to join in on that one as well. So definitely sign up for my October class if you want to learn how to make some fun Halloween cupcakes for your Halloween parties or celebrations. And then that's it. So thank you guys so much for joining. I'm sorry that my camera died, the front one. So the rest is the overhead, but I want to thank you guys all for joining, and I hope you guys join me for my next class. So have a great weekend, everyone. We'll see you next time.